Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. What a year it's been. Welcome to the 2013 Institute of Directors Annual Convention. It's a great pleasure to be back at the Royal Albert Hall. I'd like to thank our sponsors and all those who've worked so hard to make our convention a success. The hall this morning represents both the variety of British business and the diversity of IoD members, from seasoned executives and chartered directors to young entrepreneurs and startups. This combination of experience and innovation is at the heart of what the IoD stands for today. We take seriously the responsibility of representing 40,000 IoD members from across the country. Our Policy Voice panel, to which many of you contribute, keeps our finger on the pulse of what concerns you. Some examples. We support the government's education reforms because you told us of the problems caused by taking on school leavers who don't have the basics of English and maths. We criticized HS2 because you told us your concerns about the project's value for money. We back the Startup Loan Scheme because you believe support for entrepreneurship and innovation is the way of the future. On everything from broadband and aviation capacity to planning reform and tax, we promote your views to decision makers and influencers. Every day on your behalf, we make the case for a better business environment. Today, these ideas will be explored by some of the most successful individuals in business and politics. We gather at a critical time. The indications are that economic recovery is underway, but uncertainties remain. Businesses face any number of daily challenges: access to finance, employment law, regulatory burdens, changing conditions, staff issues, overheads. Businesses have to make decisions for the long term, despite the unknowns and the uncertainties that can disrupt our plans or make any planning very difficult. There's one issue which, perhaps more than any other, has dragged uncertainty behind it for too long, an issue that ignites passion on every side and divides politicians as well as the business community. I'm referring to Britain's membership of the European Union. In this hall, there'll be a broad range of views on EU membership, reflecting the country at large. For some, the free movement of goods and people within a single market is a triumph of our times. For others, the regulatory and financial burdens of membership raise questions about how well the system works and for whom it's working. And there are people who regard the issue as a simple question of sovereignty. The financial crisis, combined with some real concerns about the politics of Europe, has provided this country with an opportunity to examine the foundations of our EU membership. And the IoD would be failing its members if we didn't engage in the debate around Britain's future relations with the European Union. So we've asked you. In a recent survey of IoD members, 4/5 of you said your business has some link with the European Union. Drilling down, just 15% of IoD members would vote for a full withdrawal. Of course, it's not just an in-out question. The Prime Minister has made clear his commitment to renegotiating the terms of British membership and to offering a new settlement in a referendum. Our research shows that 60% of IoD members support a renegotiation. At the moment, if a referendum were held, half of you would vote to keep British membership. But showing the pragmatism for which so many in business are known, a third reserved judgment, saying it would depend on the renegotiation. Britain is still a nation of influence and standing. Our seats at the top tables of the world have been hard-won and should not be vacated lightly. European migration brings huge value and is vital to our economy. But in too many areas, Europe has lost its way. Its regulatory and legislative output ties up the efforts of small and medium-sized businesses, efforts which could otherwise be spent on innovation, expansion, and investment. IoD members value the single market, but there's much less enthusiasm for European intervention in corporate governance, employment law, and home affairs. A new, more relevant relationship is not incompatible with our role as an outward-looking country. But to those who call for British withdrawal, I'd urge caution. Among IoD members and across the business community as a whole, there is very little appetite for such a policy. As business leaders, I believe we must make the case for a reformed, more equitable relationship, but one that still has Britain at the heart of European influence. It is possible to reform the relationship. Recent successes for Britain in financial services show just that. A concerted effort to head off the financial transaction tax has worked, with European lawyers conceding the policy would infringe the taxing rights of member states. Brussels has backed off its plans to take over the regulation of LIBOR. And just last week, the European Advocate General agreed with Britain that ESMA, the European Securities and Markets Authority, should be stripped of its power to ban short selling. Other countries are also questioning the extent of Brussels' power. If Chancellor Merkel is re-elected this weekend, a new coalition of the willing could be possible, reshaping the European Union, driving economic competitiveness, and completing the single market. Because reform is possible if the political will exists. Advocating a genuine single market should be an urgent priority. It's a scandal that 20 years after it was supposed to be completed, there is nothing close to a single market for services in Europe. Regulations requiring a service provider to be a national of the country or resident in that country still exist. Architects and engineers wanting to work in Germany will find no single market access, nor is a lawyer or patent attorney able to work freely in Poland. In modern Europe, national barriers to trade still exist, and a recent poll found that these barriers in the service economy mean only 8% of SMEs engage in cross-border activity. And given that 99% of European businesses are small to medium enterprises, accounting for the vast majority of European jobs, creating a single market for the service market and the digital economy must be a priority. The IoD supports the Prime Minister's planned renegotiation. We'll make our voice heard in the debate about how that reform should look. We can start that conversation today, as I'm joined on stage by leading politicians and opinion formers. I'll try to ask the questions that matter to our members. I hope that what we hear and discuss will move us all closer to the IoD's core objectives: better directors, better businesses, and a better economy.